Hi, it's Dr. Sonia Doherty and my exceptional co-founder here, Dr. Krista Doherty. We are missing one of our partners in crime, Jody Peacock, but we are delighted and so excited to be here with Dr. Afsoun Khalili, who honestly is one of the kindest and most incredible, inspiring naturopathic doctors that I know. She is just such an important person in our profession right now on a bunch of different fronts, and we're going to get into it today. But as a supervisor at the school, we get your students coming here. They love you. They absolutely love you. They can't say enough amazing things about you as a person, but also as a clinician, right? Who's getting results and who's looking at treating people holistically with the goal of improving their quality of life and their well-being, which you do. So being a really effective clinician is something that I've always admired about you. And, you're a clinic faculty and you're an associate professor at the school. I know you have some exciting things that you do in your practice and a program that you have for your patients. So thank you, Afsoun. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm excited to hear more about what you think is important in naturopathic medicine and what you're up to these days.
Thank you so much for having me. I follow Exceptional NDs on Instagram, and I listen to all the talks, and they're always so inspirational.
Thank you.
And it's so nice to be a part of it now. I also love all the Pearls conferences that you guys put together, and I feel like I love what you're doing. You're trying to empower naturopathic doctors and in what they do. And we're all proud of what we do, aren't we? Because we know we're making a difference. It's interesting for me. My journey started with my own health issues as a teenager. Come from a family of lots of medical doctors and literally would go see different specialists and so on. And nobody could really help me. And I remember being 18 or 19. And one of my friends said, she goes, my sister's a naturopathic doctor. Do you want to go see her? And I had never heard of it. I was like, what? And I remember when I told my uncle, who was a gastroenterologist, my uncle had passed away now. He was like, oh, that's voodoo and don't go there, because he didn't know either. But I mean, I finally got to a place where I was not feeling good and I had to do something. So I went to see her and it changed my life. And what she did is, she changed my diet, added a few supplements. And I think for the first time ever in my life, I realized, oh, diet can be so powerful. Mm-hmm. I did my undergraduate degree in biochemistry. And I feel like that was also really great in terms of helping me choose naturopathic medicine as a profession, because I feel like so much of what we do as naturopathic doctors is we look at the mechanism of things and the biochemistry behind how a supplement works, or an amino acid or mineral, vitamin, whatever it might be. So I feel like that background really helped me as well. If it's okay, I want to share a little bit of a story because it was kind of like a miracle in a sense. I didn't know even what the school was. I had no idea where to even go study naturopathic medicine. And the naturopathic doctor that I was seeing in Montreal at the time, she had gone to the National College of Naturopathic Medicine to study, And I thought, well, I can't do that. I couldn't afford to probably move. I thought, in the US and then, work visas and student visas and stuff. And I thought, oh, well, that's not a possibility. And then one day I asked her, I said, is there a school in Canada? She goes, oh, it's interesting you say that. I think there's a school in Toronto. I said, do you know what it's called? She goes, I want to say the Canadian School of Naturopaths or something. She didn't even know the name. And I came home, and we are all sort of around the same age group, I think. Internet was new. It wasn't everywhere. And I remember going and I just put I put Naturopathic Medicine School Toronto. And then it landed on the Canadian College of Naturopathic page. And when I clicked on it, it said, registration available online now.
Wow. Wow.
It was really cool. Anyways, and then the rest is history. Yeah.
It's interesting. I think a lot of us became naturopathic doctors because of personal experience with our health. And, it's funny, Krista always wanted to be a naturopath. I think she was 9 years old. My parents didn't even know what a naturopath was. And she sort of made them take her to Dr. Mukesh, right?
Mukesh Patel.
Mukesh Patel in Stony Creek. And so we actually became sort of family friends. And then I eventually went, and it's a beautiful profession filled with really smart, interesting, incredible people. But I think because we are so different, sometimes we sort of go different ways. And I love, one of the things I love about you is that you respect everyone's work that they're doing in naturopathic medicine. And maybe that's the biochemistry piece, obviously. I think is interesting because if you understand biochemistry at that level, you can fully understand how powerful naturopathic medicine can be, right? Because we talk about evidence-based medicine. Well, evidence-based medicine includes biochemistry, and I think sort of we worship at that altar as naturopathic doctors rather than saying, oh, we just look at the RCTs only. Well, we look at physiology and biochemistry and anatomy and anecdotal experience and all these amazing tools we have in our toolkit.
100%. And more and more, if you even look at the mainstream medical literature, they're talking about evidence-informed medicine.
Yes.
Because they fully understand, the person is not a test tube, right? It's an individual. And I think for myself anyways, what I try to do is I try to look and see who that person is. We all do it, right? Every single one of us, and look at sort of all the contributing factors to the center, which is the person, and try to address as many of them as we can. And I think, I would tell the students, there's not a modality that I don't like. Some modalities I may not use as much. It's maybe not for me, but if somebody else finds them useful, why not? And as you know, some of our modalities like homeopathy, they get a lot of bad rep and people question them. But even if, let's just for a moment say it's placebo, why not? I mean, proton pump inhibitors often in studies are just good as placebo in terms of their efficacy. So maybe it's not a bad thing to use something that's placebo. Again, I'm not a homeopath and I don't use it as much because it's not one of my modalities. But when I see other people use it and they're getting results, I love to hear about it. I want to learn.
Absolutely. I mean, I find, because I do work, as you guys know, a lot in the autism world.
Yes.
And so I find homeopathy and autism very interesting because does a true placebo effect impact a person with autism, like a severely autistic child, for example? How does placebo play a role there if the child takes a, right? And I don't know, maybe it's the parents act differently if they have confidence in the medicine. I'm actually sort of trying to get through this Abraham Hoffer book. And he says from the age of like 3, your patient, maybe not the neurodevelopmental kids, but the kids who can understand need to be part of their care. So I thought that was really interesting to hear from Dr. Hoffer. So, and I would like to say that although I can't completely read this, I think it's signed by Hoffer. I'm going with that.
God, I love it.
I know, I'm going with it anyway. That's the narrative I'm choosing.
You bought that like on Amazon, right? You bought it used or you bought it, right? You just
I bought it used because a patient was using 200 milligrams of NAD TID like 3 times a day for their 7-year-old. And I was like, huh. And she's like, I bought this book from Abraham Hoffer. And I'm like, I used to do a lot more NAD. So I was kind of thinking about what that looked like. And it's really neat. Yeah. So, and if you ever want to borrow it.
I would love to
Yeah.
see that. Yeah. And I agree with you. And the other thing I think as naturopathic doctors, what I love is the humility to know we don't know everything. And the humility to even be like, maybe there's some modalities that we use that affect the body in ways that we're not able to explain right now with the science that we have. Like having the humility, because as we all know, 2 + 2 isn't always 4 in the metaphysical realm. Sometimes it might be 3.9, sometimes it's 4.1. You see what I mean? Like that sort of perspective. And homeopathy, I never forget, I think it was Jared Zeff. I may be wrong on that. But one of the elders of naturopathic medicine, I remember years ago, he was talking about homeopathy. And the way he described it, I really liked. He said, when people believed that the earth was flat, if somebody would come and say, it's a spherical world, people would look at them as they're heretics. And what are they talking about? It's heresy, what they're saying. They don't, how could it be a spherical world? And then when we found out it was a spherical world, we all could understand why people thought it was a flat world. And he said, people who do homeopathy, it's like people who believe in a spherical world and a flat, in a world where everybody believes the world is flat. If you believe the world is flat, you can't explain spherical. And that's how homeopathy is, he says.
And for me, there's this term presumed competence that exists within, the world, but particularly the world of autism, because, there's 2 ways that you can interface with people. One is you presume competence and you presume that they can understand and that, that they're aware and that they're part of your world. And in doing that, you don't create harm, even if that person doesn't understand everything, or maybe they are off in their own world sometimes. But if you presume incompetence, you can and do create harm. And so this happens all the time in the non-speaking community within the world of autism, is that you just presume that they're stupid or they don't understand because they can't speak. And now they're doing a wonderful job advocating for themselves with documentaries and blogs and saying, just because I don't speak doesn't mean I'm stupid. And that's the term they often use because they've been called that and treated like that. And I think naturopathic doctors need to do this. Like, I don't know exactly what you do, in your clinical practice, but I know, because we're in similar communities, the success you have, but I presume that you're competent, right? So if someone's doing homeopathy, like Jen Drummond is a great example. When she tells me she's had these fantastic results, I presume competence. I believe her. I've also actually used her recommendations for my son's nasal polyps, and they're about 70% gone with one remedy. So it's an interesting time. And I think if we just all had presumed competence and respect and honor and love for our fellow colleagues and friends, I think it would help us do our jobs, because it's tough to be an ND on the front lines, right? You're treating every day, you're teaching every day, you're putting your energy out for other people every day, and you're a mom.
Yeah, and we do. Yeah, we appreciate your effort as as an instructor, as like a person who's giving that generation like their background and their stage. Like, we really do appreciate all the work you put in. Not all the work, we have no idea how much work, but we see your students and we know you've helped prop them up, and we do see it, so we appreciate you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you saying that. I absolutely love our profession, and I love the students. I love, obviously, patients. We all love our patients, right? They're so special. That's why we do what we do. But I feel, honestly, I feel like our profession is just at the precipice of like blowing up and even doing better than it is. And I feel absolutely, when we're united, when we have each other's backs, the profession will grow further, and we'll be able to help way many more people. I find often we're more critical of each other than even the outside.
I think for us, it was a huge impetus to start Exceptional ND, but also include a heavy focus on community. Like, the clinical stuff is fantastic, and I'm actually treating adult patients for I've always sort of only treated kids, but I'm building confidence in different areas. But yeah, I think that connecting with other NDs has been such a gift, and it'll improve the tapestry of our profession for sure, because we have a lot of big jobs to do, right? Post-COVID era, we know how complicated these patients have become in many ways, with lots of the reactivation of old illnesses and the stress and the trauma and from the pandemic itself. So yeah, it's at battlefield conditions, and we need everyone on the same sort of trajectory of supporting each other.
And our stuff doesn't have to be, complex. And I know you were going to tell us more about your course.
I got it.
Yeah,
I've got a reminder.
I know. But
I want to hear more. We want to
know.
see if we can send our patients to
I know.
use it.
That's what I'm saying. Is like, because I think like the basics are still complex when you look at the biochemistry. So yeah, what does your course entail?
So I teach clinical nutrition for third years at CCNM, and that one definitely is more based on biochemistry and stuff like that. But the course that I've do with patients, it's called Be Your Best Self, and I wanted that a specific name for the course because I think as naturopathic doctors, that's what we do, isn't it? We help people become the better versions of themselves, best versions of themselves. And one of the things I think when it comes to dietary changes and lifestyle changes that's difficult for people is people look for perfection. And so with the Be Your Best Self, I thought, okay, let's put a course together. First of all, let's talk about the basics of diet. Because as you know, on Instagram, on social media, on Google, everywhere you go, there's such a volume of information about diet, and people get very confused, right? Like at the end of the day, people are like, should I eat salmon or should I not eat salmon? Is it organic or is it not organic? Is red meat okay or is it not okay? Like, are carbs okay or are carbs not okay? So I go through the evidence, but I also with a huge emphasis of individualizing to ourselves, because the three of us here right now, I might be like, hey, I love having red meat. When I have high quality red meat, I feel great. And the two of you might be like, oh, red meat does not agree with me. For some of you, for one of you, lentils might be, a great source of protein. So part of Be Your Best Self is educating people on what, the different food groups are, what fiber is, how much fiber is necessary. And then part of it is getting them on a journey of trying different things and figuring out what works best for them. Because for me, diet is about enhancing health. And as you both know, when someone changes their diet, they don't need as many supplements. They don't need to take as many things because now they're doing the diet and lifestyle piece. And then the other thing I do in Be Your Best Self, I also talk about the connection between stress and our health, hormones and health. We talk about perimenopause and menopause a little bit. We talk about andropause, which I know, some people say, oh, andropause doesn't exist. But if you talk to some men, they're like, oh no, something's happening to me. I feel a change, And then the other thing that I talk about a lot in the course is maintenance, because you guys all know a lot of weight loss programs, you lose a ton of weight. And then the hard part is maintaining. And often what happens is people think, okay, I'm going to restrict my diet to lose X amount of weight. And then once I lose weight, I'll be able to eat everything. Well, if you do that, you're going to gain the weight back. So part of the education part of Be Your Best Self is the changes you're making to your diet are lifelong changes. This is not something you do for 3 months to lose 5 pounds and then you go back. That's not what it is. And for myself, what I've learned is moderation works best, because you can't tell somebody never eat a piece of cake, never have coffee, never have, cheese, never have X food. You can't do that. People can't sustain that. But what I have found, especially when it comes to weight loss, what I have found is, well, maybe if you had such and such instead of, the cake, and if you want cake, have it, but don't do it every day. And then we also define what once in a while means. I never forget a patient of mine, she was so cute. She was like, oh, I just have that once in a while. And then I looked at diet diary, it was like every day. I was like, oh, but and then it turns out like she was eating that, whatever it was, like 3 times a day. So once a day was once in a while, right? So then those kinds of things we talk about as well. Yeah, but huge emphasis on moderation.
But I think because diet and nutrition is the way we love our families and we love ourselves, right? So that relationship with food has to be something that is sustainable and isn't something that you feel like you're having an adversarial relationship with all the time.
100%. 100%. And like we all know carbs are glucose is the primary source of fuel for the brain. So when people go keto all the time, nothing against keto, it may be good for some people, but it's not good for a lot of people. You don't know how many people I've treated over the years for weight loss specifically that they're like, I've done keto for 6 months and I've lost 5 pounds only. It's just not the right diet for them.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting when we add a little bit of carbs, good kinds, they start losing weight. So yeah, I think Be Your Best Self is really that for me. It's about empowering people to take the reins in their own hands. I also talk about the politics of food. Yeah, I do.
I wondered, because you had mentioned that you talked to your 3rd-year students about that, and I think that's amazing.
Yeah, I talk to politics of food at CCNM, but also with the patients. I mean, it's a little bit different how I do it with patients than, of course, at CCNM. At CCNM, it's more it's wider and we get into more detail. But even with patients, I think it's important for people to know. Actually, I was shocked, to be honest with you guys, myself, when I was doing the research behind the politics of food. Because, when we go to our grocery stores, especially if you go down the cookie aisle, cracker aisle, cereal aisle, the impression is abundance, right? It's like so many different brands and you think, wow. But did you know 5 main companies own the majority of our food in Canada and the United States?
That's wild.
I think people need to know that, right? I think that definitely it's eye-opening when you see that that's promoted in a certain way, when we know that those foods can be so harmful, right? At high levels for metabolic health and that kind of thing.
100%. And you know what? Consumers do drive change in those companies.
Mm-hmm.
Why do I say that? Because I don't know if I'm allowed to say brands, so I won't say any brands.
Oh yeah, you can say brands. Yeah, no, this is just us just chatting.
Okay, yeah, because for example, Chex, that brand, the cereal Chex, for years they didn't have any gluten-free options. Yeah. But what happened is sales of cereals started going down because people stopped eating as much gluten, and people don't want to have cereal for breakfast because it's full of sugar. And then now when you go down the aisles, you'll see so many more gluten-free options, so many more no sugar or low sugar options for cereal. Mm-hmm. You'll see mainstream crackers now have flax seeds in them and chia seeds and hemp seeds in them, which we never saw those before. So Consumers do drive the change. And I think that's the other thing that I like to talk to people about, especially in the BRS self. If you stop buying something, then the company will catch on because sales talk to people.
Absolutely.
Or lack
It's-
thereof.
So I was at a conference with Julie Matthews, who's a nutritionist out of the US, and she asked me to come and speak. It was Mississauga. It was really lovely. And I talk about A1 beta casein being pro-inflammatory and impacting glutathione status. And actually, there's research from Dr. Richard Deeth, who's a neuropharmacologist, that shows it reduces cognitive function. So in my population of autism, I recommend they replace it. So I'm talking about A1 beta casein, and these this couple comes up at the end and they said, we're dairy farmers. And I was like, I'm so sorry. And they said, no, we've actually found this really fascinating. And so that was how many years ago? 10 to 15 years ago.
15 years ago. Like
They
so long.
They converted their whole herd over to A2. And they, as far as I know, they were the first A2 milk yogurt cheese company in Canada.
Don't you just love that?
I do love it, actually. It
Like
speaks exactly to your point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And dairy is also so interesting, isn't it? And I'm sure you guys have had this too. People who say when they eat dairy in Canada or the US, bad reactions, they go to France and they have dairy there and they're fine. Right? So then I wanted to go deep into that. I want to understand why. What was the difference? The pasteurization in Canada, United States is different, but also now what we do, and I'm sure you've seen this, we filter our milk. And why do we do that? Because we don't want any bacteria in the milk, right? Because we want the shelf life of milk to be long. We don't want it to go rancid. But the problem with that is we also take all the good bacteria. What helps us digest milk is the bacteria in milk.
Okay.
You know, and so exactly like you said, like all these things, and the feed that we give our cows is different too.
No.
In Canada and the US, we give different feeds to our cows from like European countries. And it's so interesting, like we don't allow raw cheese, right? Like most Canadian cheese or American cheese, if you look, it's always from pasteurized milk, but the majority of cheese from France, from Italy, if you look, it's raw cheese.
Yep. It's illegal here. Like it's like a criminal offense here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not suggesting for people to go and drink raw milk. Like that's not what I'm suggesting. Like people have to use their discernment and you have to do what's right. But what I am suggesting is our food is different. And that is affecting all of us. There is a reason why. Have you guys seen how many people, myself included, I recently found out I have ADHD as an adult. Right?
Well, you're brilliant. So obviously all of us who got diagnosed are brilliant.
Right? This is what I mean, though. Why so many of us have so many things? Because our food has changed.
Yeah.
I think, for me, in the autism sphere, we talk a lot about propionic acid because propionic acid was linked to autism. It creates brain inflammation, impairs methylation, reduces glutathione, binds carnitine, leading to essential fatty acid deficiency. So that propionic acid is an anti-moisture agent or a preservative that's in all our grains and all our dairy. And they actually prophylactically treat the cows with antibiotics so they don't get an infection. But because of that, then the bacteria in their own body creates more propionic acid. So this research was awarded a top 50 scientific findings in Canadian history. And it was asked, the neurologist was asked to speak at the Nobel laureate conference. So Europe is banning it. Germany's banned it. Russia and China are reducing it, but Canada is doing nothing about this propionic acid. It's in everything. And all you have to do is Google PPA autism, and you can see that it has really detrimental effects. So, I'm preaching to the choir, but you guys know.
Well, I love that you're sharing that. I love that you're sharing that because people don't know.
No.
Well, and the research now in autism and ADHD is starting to look very similar in terms of inflammation, oxidative stress, and all that stuff. So I did, a thing for a webinar for Tori Hudson, Dr. Tori Hudson. I couldn't believe how close the literature was. So the ADHD brain and the autism brain, I think, have huge advantages, but we're in an environment with food in particular that's pulling away those advantages and highlighting the disadvantages.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah. I you know what my dream is? My dream is that one day, every hospital, every ward, every clinic, has NDs and NDs, working together, because I think that's how patients shine. Because I think, a lot of medical doctors are too busy to read about these things.
Yeah.
Right. They don't know. It's also not something that they are encouraged to know about. And I think if we collaborate together, like one of the things I'd love to do, for example, is conferences where we all attend together. Now, functional medicine conferences are to a certain degree like that. Everybody comes, all kinds of practitioners come, but I feel we need more. And because I would love for you to give this talk, a talk on propionic acid, for example, to a lot of pediatricians, because they don't know, they're not aware. And it's not that they're not interested. I think they're, first of all, too busy, and they don't really learn about clinical nutrition anyways. Like, it's not part of their modalities. And I think that the more we have these exchanges and the more we collaborate, that's when the patients shine.
I
And it
think
makes
so.
us,
Yeah.
it makes us not sound so crazy. Like, we put these restrictive diets, or we put these diets in play, and we sound like we're crazy. And then our patients get better, but sort of they're sort of like the doctors will see patients are getting better. I don't understand why. I don't understand. It's the dichotomy of, like, maybe they're just eating more greens because the recommendations don't make any sense. So looking at why we would do something would make a lot more sense when they see these summaries and they're like, just seems crazy. Yeah.
What's funny sitting here with two biochemists, because I don't have a biochemistry degree, and I actually struggled with it until I found where it played a role in human health. But the gluten and dairy, it's interesting because the gluten and dairy proteins stop the absorption of cysteine, right? So it stops the production of glutathione, which is the body's master antioxidant. If physicians knew that, then they would be like, oh, no wonder all those crazy naturopaths are constantly recommending gluten-free, dairy-free, right? It's like a home run to make the body make more glutathione.
That's exactly it. Like, when I go to the hospital and I see that, someone who's got X, Y, Z, these are family friends, and I go, and then I see they bring their food and it's all gluten and dairy, I'm shocked. I'm like, I wish there was a naturopathic doctor who could work with this hospital just to even help how to put this diet together. Like, there's no vegetables, like, seriously. And the vegetables actually, that wasn't true. There was some vegetables, but they were so overly cooked. When it's like no longer green. It's like, I don't know, dark green or something. It was like that. And then, like, the dessert was like Jello and ice cream. I'm like, how are we giving Jello and ice cream to someone, who's like hospitalized? And anyways, and I think that these are the things I get excited about, because I feel like we have this so much work ahead of us, but great work. And that's what I mean. If we are able to educate, we get this bad rep, or naturopathic doctors are against meds. I think most of us, we understand when meds are necessary. We're not going to be like, no, you're not going to have any meds. Like, of course, when it's necessary. But all we're saying is, hey, guys, there's other options before you choose the med. There's other things you can do that maybe can enhance someone's health, and maybe the medication can be a last resort,
Yeah.
But those are the kinds of things I think that our profession has to still work on. And I mean, the sky's the limit, right? As to what.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys heard, in the US, the medical community is going after the naturopaths a little bit.
Oh, I didn't hear it.
No.
Yeah.
What's happening?
The current government in the US, and it's so funny because people always say, oh, this government over that government is more naturopathic. I don't think that's the case. I think nobody's more or less naturopathic. I don't think it matters what the colors are. So
I wish.
Exactly.
I wish. Easy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It would have been easy. Yeah. The current government, apparently, they're going after naturopathic doctors in the US after the AAMP, and it's interesting because if the elections are coming up, I guess, for the United States in November, is it? I don't know. I don't follow it, but I think it's in November.
Mm-hmm.
So some people are saying maybe if the election goes the other way, it'll be better for naturopaths, because if it doesn't, it may get a little bit tougher for naturopathic doctors in the US.
We do hear.
I mean, I don't want to speak for RFK Jr. because I don't know him personally, but I've had a few email exchanges with him over autism treatment. So, like, I know I save them. I'm like, this is amazing. I just think the work he did with improving environmental kind of status of things, and that, his fight to get things like mercury out of, things that were negatively impacting human health. It was brave, so nobody's perfect. I don't think I'm perfect, but I think there's a lot of like push towards natural health in that one side of the election, which is interesting, right? It'll be interesting to see what we see up here. But, to that point, for naturopaths who are watching, and we talked to Dr. Tara Gignac, who's been really involved in KONO and regulation of naturopathic doctors, is that and you, Afsoun, you know, we've talked about this too, is talk to your MPs, talk to your MPPs, right? Get into your community, be on your school boards, right? Let your community get to know you so they don't just say, oh, naturopaths are quacks. They, you know, we can get to know you as a person and then maybe even a practitioner and see that change that most of us have seen when we do naturopathic interventions for ourselves or our family.
100%. And you know what I love? I love how the CND was finally involved with the Canada Food Guide, you know,
I forgot
and
about
they
that.
were able to change the drink to water,
I didn't know that.
water,
That's
right?
awesome.
And like eat more vegetables, you know, and eat fruits. And like, it's just the way like CND, I wasn't part of the CND when that happened. I wish I was, but I wasn't, but I'm so proud of them for doing that. And I think, you know, everything starts with, so I love how you said you were in touch with, say, like a celebrity like that, like someone who's so well known, because I think that's the thing, right? As NDs, and myself included, I'll be the first to admit, we're too busy maybe, or too caught in our own lives. We don't take the effort, but we should. And sometimes you'd be surprised. The very person that you think might be against what we do, after you talk to them, they become very open.
Yeah. Because you're personal, like you personalize
Exactly.
the message, or you personalize the job or the theory or the issue or the opinion. You're like, I'm the person it's coming from. They're like, oh, okay. That's, it brings it sort of down to a person to person.
100%. And you know, more and more, I also see mainstream medicine in Ontario. Like I have actually people who say, my family physician said to see a naturopath. And I love that.
Absolutely. And I'm finding them specifically much more open because they are finding they're not having all the answers and they have such a huge, important job to do that they're going to do their job, you know, life-saving and making sure people are diagnosed properly, on the right meds, getting the right care, surgery, all of that huge world that they, and then to depend on us maybe more and more as we build those relationships, right? Because I have, because obviously autism is a small world, right? So I have very specific physicians who started with, that's quackery, it won't work, and I don't know what that nutritionist is talking about, and then it's like you should go see her, right? So it's you know, 20 years in, it gets fun, right? It gets very fun.
We
Yeah.
have like the medical doctor Sonia's talking about. I see like his daughter, and so the daughter is like infusing these messages at the dinner table, like the Sunday dinner table, and then we're like, what'd you say to your dad? And so it's the slow work we do. It's slow, it's impactful, but it is grassroots, right? It's patient to patient. It's just kind of the way we work. But you're right, we get busy in the weeds, and yeah, we all sort of try to take a step back and maybe email or call a famous person.
Well, I think I also didn't mention that you are the newest CAND member, right? The board member. So thanks again. That's another role that you're playing to help our profession, which is amazing.
Hopefully I can. I also want to say, you know, what you guys were saying, the students, you know, one of the things I love to do being at CCNM is hopefully empowering the students, helping confident people graduate from the profession, people who are confident in their abilities and their knowledge, and they know that they can help people. One of the things I think our profession has to work on, especially in Ontario, I would say, because in the US, I don't see it quite to the same degree, is confidence as a profession. And I'm not talking about us as individuals, but as a profession. I think we need to know our worth. We need to be more passionate about who we are, be proud of who we are. We need to, you know, I feel like we're sometimes insecure in what we do, or maybe not as, you know, confident. And I think that is not a good thing for our profession. You know, we need to be confident in who we are, you know, confident in what we do. We need to know that we are able to help people. You know, during COVID, it was really actually even amazing for myself after all these years of being in practice. Carissa, you and I have been in practice. No, sorry, Sonia, you and I have been in practice the same time for 20 years. And, you know, we've seen it, right? Like people, it's the long game with naturopathic medicine, and people do transform and they do get better. And if you give up too quickly, then, you know, that's when you don't see the results. And so one of the things I do at CCNM is always remind students, you did choose the right profession. You're exactly where you're meant to be. This is the right profession. You will succeed. You just have to believe in yourself, and you have to believe in your medicine.
I love that. You also said you love this generation, right? You said they're different. Like, yeah.
They are. You know, it's so funny because everyone's like, oh, I hate they're this, they're that. I'm like, oh, really? Because I just love them. I love how they're fearless, they're
I love it.
outspoken. And you know what? They set boundaries. And, you know, we, in a way, you know, I remember in the beginning, sometimes we would be like, oh, so-and-so said this, you know, and then I like to reflect on things. I reflect and I thought, well, they were setting boundaries for themselves. You know, as people, as women, you know, my generation, I mean, I went to school part of my life in London, England. And when we were told, don't speak until you're spoken to.
Right.
So I remember I would be sitting in class, I had a question, but I had to wait for the teacher to be, okay, now you can ask questions. And I would raise my hand to ask a question, you know? And these kids, and I call them kids, I mean, they're not kids. They're
We
young
do too.
adults.
We do too.
But these kids are amazing. They're fearless. They ask their questions.
Good.
I mean, and they stand up for what they believe in, you know, and I love that about them. I love it. I think we need more of that.
Our profession needs them. Yeah.
Yes.
It does. Yeah.
And if you guys are new grads or young NDs and you need us, we're here too. Like
Absolutely.
Chris and I always accept preceptors. Afsoun's teaching at the school, and you know,
I think extra.
It's, you know, we're this community. One of the nice post-COVID things is this connection through Zoom and, you know, having more connectivity options. And so students, you know, reach out, you're on your way, as we all are striving to be exceptional NDs, right? That's why we started it. It's a journey, not a destination. And we're all on our own journey to, you know, ourselves. So when we do it together, it's easier. We learn more, our patients benefit, our communities benefit. So it's amazing.
100%. And this is what I like about aging. It's so funny. When I turned 50, you know, I was like, it was actually really transformative. Like I don't know how to explain it other than by saying, like, I felt like I became who I was always meant to be, you know, and I love that about aging in our profession, because I do feel like I have something to share with the younger NDs.
You do.
And I love that. I absolutely love that. Like, I'm not afraid of aging. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes when you age, depending on the profession, you become irrelevant maybe, or you feel like your expertise are not valued as much anymore or whatever. But in our profession, you know, it's the opposite. And we need both. We need the young blood to come in, and we need the older people to work together. Yeah, it's really wonderful.
Well, you're a gorgeous 50, and you're an amazing human being. You seriously are just a gift to our profession. Parting thoughts? What's your final thought you want to share with our amazing and complicated community?
I think we have to be less fearful of being ourselves. And this applies to myself, because I think many of us as NDs, I just like to talk about the pink elephant in the room, right? And the reality of it is, many of us, you know, practice and work and live in fear. And I think we have to feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah.
And I think we have to have our voice heard in a respectful way, of course. We have to push the boundaries. We have to, you know, stand up for ourselves, for the profession, continue helping people. You know, I think this is what it's about, you know. It's, you know, fearing the fear and doing it anyways. It's
the grown-up version. I don't love it, but I agree. Unfortunately, it's been lovely speaking with you. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much.
And that was beautifully said. Thank you.
Big hugs to you both.
Big hugs.
Yeah.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.